Mhm.
Marcus Smart signs a 4-year extension with the Boston Celtics. There is a no trade clause, right? No, not a player option.
Not a player option. Yep.
Yeah, so Marcus Smart is going to be in Boston for the foreseeable future. Kyle, I guess my question to you is: does this, move the needle for Boston in terms of their contention in the Eastern Conference, or similar to the Clippers, does it keep them pretty much the same?
I think for Boston, this is just a good overall signing. Just because, look, Marcus Smart isn't the best option that the Celtics have. You got obviously Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown as your top two options
Al
so far.
Horford is the third option. You're right.
We'll see. You mean he's 100 years old at this point, but his mid range game is on point, so I will give you that. When it comes to Marcus Smart, though, he's one of those guys that you just love to have on the roster because he is the enforcer of the team. He is that guy that is going to get in the opponent's face whenever something goes sideways. And he has the ability to provide clutch buckets for the Celtics here and there when the opportunities present themselves. So I don't think that Marcus Smart, by and large, is the most impactful player for the Celtics, but I do think he's a great locker room presence. I think the enforcer mentality that he brings to that team, it adds a gritty element to that team, and I think that's what this team needs more of because they have a superstar in Jason Tatum. They have one of the best two-way players in the game in Jalen Brown, but Marcus Smart, his main role is the enforcer guy on the team. And as long as he provides that grit to that team, and if it rubs off on some of the players around him, I think it's to the betterment of the Celtics. So I think the Celtics, they played this one smart. It's a 4-year deal. I think in total it's somewhere around $80 million, maybe just a touch
It's
underneath that.
77 or something like that, 77 point something.
But I think this was smart from Boston's front office, and it locks him up for the next 4 years. So I think as long as they're able to keep that continuity and the chemistry together on that roster, I think it'll help out Boston in the long run. I don't know if it's going to put them at the top of the Eastern Conference. I highly doubt that this move will shift the needle that much for them. But I think as far as keeping the continuity of the chemistry of the team together, yeah, this was definitely necessary on their part.
Yeah, honestly, I can't really agree any more than Kyle. Excuse me, I can't really agree more with what Kyle said than what I already do because if you're really looking at it from a structural standpoint, you have a lot of offensive talent on this roster as it is, like Kyle said, with Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. And then Jalen Brown's capability of playing both ways on the defensive side. You add Marcus Smart to this lineup again, you bring him back, should I say, and his defensive intensity, his ability to take charges, his emotional leadership on the floor, his intensity, his grittiness. He just brings a multitude of things on the emotional aspect of the game. And then, of course, the intensity he provides when he's on that floor is something you really can't replace or afford to replace from a playoff contending team that is the Boston Celtics. And we saw last year they did struggle and they did barely make the playoffs, but his presence is very much valued because of what he does bring to the table. So I think them resigning him is definitely a must have for them. I think it was a needed to get done move for the Celtics. Again, a rookie head coach. You bring in Dennis Schroeder for the second unit. From what I'm understanding, Marcus Smart is going to remain in the starting lineup, and so you continue to have the lineup that consists of, Smart, Brown, Tatum. I don't even Jabari Parker would, I guess, play the four starting, and then you bring Al Horford back to start at the five. I know Tristan Thompson's still on that team, so he'll probably come off the bench unless he plays the four and Jabari comes off the bench. I have no idea what's going to happen. Boston as a whole isn't really much of a threat, like Kyle had already said, in the Eastern Conference. But keeping Marcus Smart does keep them in that contention in the playoffs because of everything that he already has done for the team and the relationship that he has with the players on the roster. So good for Boston. Happy that he gets his payday. There was a lot circulating in the offseason and even during the season that he was going to get traded. I mean, Dallas was a potential suitor for a sign and trade. There were a whole lot of teams that were reaching out to Boston from the reports from Stein, from Woj, that people were just trying to sign and trade, but they couldn't they either couldn't get the trade details out of the way or the contract extension that Marcus wanted from them. or in terms of from other teams, but he stays in Boston for another 4 years, and I think that he's going to be a happy player over there, and he's going to continue to add to the defensive intensity that Boston already has.
I do expect Boston to have a better year than they did last year, because
Hopefully.
by and large last year they really did struggle. I think as long as we're able to keep that continuity on the roster, you got Tatum, you've got Jaylen Brown, you've got Marcus Smart now re-signed for the long term. We'll see what happens with Dennis Schroeder. I know he'll come off the bench. He's gonna have something to prove after his lackluster performance in the playoffs for the Lakers this past season. So I think there's definitely going to be a much bigger opportunity for the Boston Celtics to perform at a much higher level than they did last year. And hopefully it just clicks for the Celtics this year. This team has a potential to be a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. And as long as they stay healthy, and if Jalen and Jason play anything like they did last year, I think they have a good chance to possibly get to the top 5 of the Eastern Conference this upcoming season.